The Class 66 is a type of six-axle diesel-electric freight locomotive developed in part from the Class 59, for use on the railways of the UK. Since its introduction, the class has been successful and has been sold to British and other European railway companies. In Continental Europe it is marketed as the EMD Series 66. History Background On the privatisation of British Rail's freight operations in 1996, Wisconsin Central Transportation Systems under the control of Ed Burkhardt bought up a number of the newly privatized rail freight companies, Transrail, Mainline, Load Haul, and later Rail Freight Distribution and Rail Express Systems. Controlling 93% of UK rail freight, after a public relations exercise involving the input of the general public, the company was named English, Welsh and Scottish Railways. EWS inherited a fleet of 1,600 mainly diesel locomotives, with an average age of over 30 years. 300 had been cannibalized for spares. Typical of the fleet, the 2,400 horsepower Class 47s needed a major overhaul every 7 years, costing £400,000. Yet had an average daily availability of less than 65% with only 16 days between major failures. To enable it to offer its stated lower pricing to customers, EWS needed to reduce operating costs and raise availability. Order and specification After reviewing the existing privately commissioned Class 59, which was more powerful, highly reliable and with lower operating costs, EWS approached its builder Electromotive Diesel, then a division of General Motors. EMD offered their JT42CWR model, which had the same loading gauge passing body shell as the Class 59. The engine and traction motors were different models to enable higher speeds, and the Class 66's incorporated General Motors version of a self-steering bogie, designed to reduce track wear and increase adhesion on curves. Placing what was termed as the biggest British loco order since steam days, EWS placed an order for 250 units to be built at the EMD plant in London, Ontario, Canada. The M710 12-cylinder diesel engine is a development of one used over 20 years, whilst the M2000 control equipment is the same as that used on Irish Railways, i.e. 201 class. EWS reduced the locomotive's time into operation through specifying cab systems laid out like the Class 59, whilst increasing availability with a fuel tank of 8,180 litres capacity, compared to 3,470 litres on a standard Class 47. United Kingdom The first locomotive shipped to the UK arrived at Immingham in June 1998, taken to Derby for testing. The second was taken to AAR's Pueblo Test Centre for endurance testing, before shipping to the UK. The locomotives then shipped at a rate of 11 per month into the UK via Newport docks, until the order was completed in December 2001. After unloading, EWS engineers then simply took off the tarpaulin, and locked the suspension, and finally, as each was shipped with water and fuel, hooked up the batteries, before starting the engine and handing the locomotive into service. Each locomotive is specified and guaranteed to 95% availability, aiming for a minimum of 180 days mean time between failures. It is designed to cover 1/6 million km between major rebuilds, equivalent to 18 years service, with each major rebuild costed at £200,000. The initial classification was as Class 61, then they were subsequently given the Class 66 designation in the British classification system. In 1998 Freightliner placed an order for locomotives. They were followed by GB Rail Freight, and then Direct Rail Services. Although sometimes unpopular with many rail enthusiasts, due to their ubiquity and having caused the displacement of several older types of British-built locomotives, their high reliability has helped rail freight to remain competitive. Rail enthusiasts call them sheds. Continental Europe The Class 66 design has also been introduced to Continental Europe, where it is currently certified for operations in Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, France, and Poland, with certification pending in the Czech Republic and Italy. They currently operate on routes between Sweden and Denmark and between Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands and Poland. As a result of its well-known British identity, EMD Europe markets the locomotive as Series 66. UK importation after an increase in UK rail traffic post the 2008 global economic crisis, by 2011 EMD were running low on key parts for the design, specifically castings. After the closure of the London, Ontario plant that year after an industrial dispute, and the introduction of new EU crash and emissions regulations, it was concluded by many that the last of the Class 66 locomotives had been produced. Due to a reduction in European freight volumes, since mid-2012 a number of EMD Series 66 locomotives have been imported by UK rail freight operators and converted to UK type specifications. These have included, GBRF bought 3X Dutch locos in 2012, which have been numbered 66,747 to 66,749 and also bought 2X German Rush rail locomotives in 2013, which have been numbered 66,750 to 66,751. However, in September 2013, GB Rail Freight announced a new order of a further 8 Class 66/7 locomotives from EMD to be leased via a Verscholt Rail Group, the first of the class to be built at EMD's Muncie, Indiana plant. On February 2 GBRF ordered a further 13 locomotives. These 21 locomotives will be numbered 66,752 to 66,772. Numbers 66,752 to 66,756 have been shipped from America and are due to arrive at Newport Docks in July 2014. Number 66,752 has been named the Hoosier State, a nickname for Indiana. Emission compliance numbers 66,752 to 66,772 are expected to be the last Class 66s ordered for service in Great Britain because of increasingly stringent emission regulations. The Class 66s meet Stage 3A of the regulations, but not Stage 3B, so no more can be delivered after the end of 2014. Stage 3B is likely to require additional exhaust treatment equipment that cannot easily be accommodated within the UK loading gauge. The same restriction will apply to Class 68 and Class 70, which is why there is a flurry of activity to beat the deadline. The restriction will not apply to second-hand locomotives, provided that they are imported from within the European Union. The purpose is to put a cap on the total number of non-compliant locomotives in the EU. Current operators DB Schenker DB Schenker bought out EWS. Their Class 66 fleet includes 5 locomotives capable of banking heavy trains over the Lickey Incline. On these specific locomotives, the knuckle cupola has been modified to allow remote releasing from inside the cab, whilst in motion. It also includes 15 locomotives fitted with RETB signalling equipment, for working in northern Scotland and RETB-fitted branch lines. A few DB Schenker Class 66s are now working in Europe as part of the Eurocargo rail contract. Freightliner Freightliner followed EWS by initially ordering 5 new Class 66/5 locomotives, and have continued to order in small batches. As of summer 2010, the 66/5 fleet had reached 98 examples. 66,521 was withdrawn after the 2001 crash at Great Heck and later scrapped. In 2000 a new Class 66/6 subclass was built, with a lower gear ratio, enabling heavier trains to be hauled, albeit at slower speed. There are presently 25 examples of this class, numbered 66,601-625. Some of these locomotives have since been exported for use with Freightliner Poland. During 2004 the company took delivery of the most recent Class 66/9 subclass of the locomotive, which are a low-emission variant. All new locomotives for all companies are now of the low-emission T2 type. The original 2 such locomotives remain as 66,951/52. In 2011, Freightliner took on direct rail services 66,411-420. GB Rail Freight GB Rail Freight initially leased 17 Class 66/7 locomotives from Eversholt Rail Group, before increasing its fleet to 32. During April 2006 5 more low-emission locomotives were delivered, liveried for use on the Metronet Transport for London contracts. A further order for 5 more locomotives was delivered in early 2007, and another 5 locomotives in April 2008. 66,733 to 746 are formed of Class 66s from direct rail services, Freightliner and Colas Rail. In 2011 66,720 was painted in a special rainbow livery. In June 2012, 66,734 derailed at Locktree whilst working 6S45 North Blythe for Fort William and was consequently cut up on site and scrapped. Direct Rail Services Direct Rail Services, a subsidiary of British Nuclear Fuels, leased Class 66 locomotives from Porterbrook. In 2002, DRS ordered 10 Class 66/4 locomotives, employed on new Anglo-Scottish traffic, some with Stobart Rail. In 2006, 10 more T2 specification units were delivered, a further 10 in late 2007, and 4 more in 2008. After the first 20 Class 66s operated by DRS were transferred to Freightliner and GBRF, leaving just 14 in their fleet, DRS leased the 5 former Fastline freight locomotives. Colas Rail Colas Rail took over the ex-Advenza Cemex cement flow after the company went bust, utilizing ex-Advenza locomotives. During 2010 they took on 66,843 and latterly 66,844, which both had been on lease to GBRF. They also took on ex-DRS 66,410, which was renumbered 66,845. They made a deal with GBRF and Colas acquired 5 ex-Freightliner Class 66s and were renumbered 66,846 euro 66,850. The 5 Class 66s that Colas had went to GBRF and were renumbered 66,742 euro 66,746, all of which have now been repainted into Europorty livery at Eastleigh. Former operators. Advenza Freight Advenza Freight, a Cotswold Rail subsidiary, operated Class 66,841-844. They were primarily used on Advenza's scrap and cement flows. The locomotives originated from the batch that DRS returned. Advenza Freight went bust in October 2009 and the Class 66s returned to storage. These locos were housed at Gloucester carriage sidings where Advenza Freight was based. Fastline Fastline Freight, part of Jarvis plc, which operated intermodal services between Doncaster and Birmingham International Rail Freight Terminal, and Chelmsport, in North Kent, using refurbished Class 56 locomotives, ordered 5 Class 66/3 locomotives to operate a coal flow from Hatfield Colliery. They were delivered in 2008. Following the demise of Jarvis in 2010, and Fastline going into administration on March 29, 2010, these locomotives were placed in store, being towed to DRS Carlisle Kingmore or Crewe Gresty Bridge Depot for storage. During 2011, DRS repainted the 5 ex-Fastline locomotives and took them on in their own fleet, keeping their original numbers. Subclasses, minor differences between different orders, and different operating companies have resulted in a number of subclasses being defined. Cab design problems. The British trade union ASLEF has complained that the locomotives are unfit and unsafe to work in, citing a lack of air conditioning, and poor seating and noise levels. In April 2007 ASLEF proposed a ban on their members driving the locomotives during the British summer 2007 period. Keith Norman, ASLEF's General Secretary, described the cabs as unhealthy, unsafe and unsatisfactory. Research showed that in July 2006, when the weather had been extremely hot, the number of times a driver had passed a red signal increased. EWS entered into discussions and made amendments to a series of trial locomotives. GB Rail Freight and Freightliner also investigated cab improvements, In June 2007, Progress on the issue led ASLEF to withdraw its threat of industrial action. In Norway, CargoNet related complaints about the noise levels in the CD66 variant of the Class 66 resulted in higher pay rates for drivers. Accidents. On February 28, 2001, 66-521 was involved in the 2001 Great Heck Rail crash, which resulted in 10 deaths including the driver Stephen Dunn. The locomotive was written off and scrapped as a result of major damage sustained in the accident. On February 9, 2006, a freight train, hauled by EWS 66017, derailed at Brentingby Junction, near Melton Mowbray. Having passed a signal at danger, the locomotive and the first 3 wagons were derailed at catch points at the end of the Upgoods Loop. There were no injuries. On January 4, 2010, a freight train hauled by DB Schenker 66048 derailed at Carbridge in snowy weather, blocking the Highland Main Line. Having passed a signal at danger, the train was derailed at trap points, subsequently falling down an embankment into trees and injuring the 2 crew members. The locomotive was hauling container flats from Inverness to Messend Yard on behalf of Stobart Rail. The line was reopened on January 12. On November 21, 2011, 66-111 derailed between Exeter Central and Exeter St David's on working and engineering works service. On June 28, 2012, GBRF operated 66-734 derailed at Locktree whilst working the 6S45 North Blythe Fort William Alcan tanks. Due to its position and the environmental risks associated with recovery, after agreement from owners Porterbrook, it was cut up on site and the mechanics recycled as spare parts. On August 1, 2015, 66-428 was hauling an engineering train that ran into the rear of another engineering train at Logan, Ayrshire. It was severely damaged. See also, EMD Series 66. References and sources. References sources Fox, Peter. Hall, Peter. Pritchard, Robert. British Railways Locomotives and Coaching Stock 2004. Sheffield, Platform 5. ISBN 1-900-2336-39-9. Fox, Peter. Hall, Peter. Pritchard, Robert. British Railways Locomotives and Coaching Stock 2008. Sheffield, Platform 5. ISBN 978-1-900-2336-63-3. Electromotive Diesel, Incorporated. EMD, JT42CWRM. External links, Nothing Stops a Class 66. Rail. Reprinted via pigeonsnest.co.uk. Class 66 Electromotive Diesel JT42CWR Class 66 Railfan NL. Special Report, The Class 66s. Railway Herald, 19 €25. April 18, 2008. ISSN 1751-8091.